Hi, my beautiful friends, and welcome to our Aquarius full moon discussion. I am really excited to get into this powerful, wisdom-packed full moon and some of the ways that that wisdom is showing up for me and how I think we can work with it really well. But this is only the first of 2 full moons in Aquarius this year. Every year there's a sign that's going to get 2 full moons, and this year it is in Aquarius. So we're going to have these bookends happening for Leo season. This first full moon is going to be happening right at the beginning of Leo season, and we'll have a second Aquarius full moon right at the end of Leo season, really almost at the beginning of Virgo season. So these are really symbolic moons. They, when you have aspects or some transits that are happening around 0 or 1 degree, we are talking about a time of shift and change. We are talking about, like, there's a little bit of an extra transformative kick that can kind of happen with full moons like this. Aquarius is going to be asking us, these moons in Aquarius are going to be asking us to look at things from fresh perspectives, be open to fresh ideas, fresh creative problem solving, fresh creative ideas, to not look at things from the same perspective over and over again, and to be open to even looking at ourselves a little differently and just having an open mind. And these moons are going to help us do that. And I think that's really important and powerful right now as we are navigating some new energetic cycles. This moon is super, super poetic, and I'm really excited about it. I would also say, with 2 full moons in Aquarius, with an entire month where we're going to be working with these lunations that are very cleansing and helping us see from new perspectives, kind of keep some notes from this first moon, and then notice how that converses with the next full moon that we will be having. And notice how this entire moon cycle through Leo season is working with you to get those fresh ideas and perspectives. How is the world talking to you? How is energy trying to connect with you? How are ideas trying to come in? Pay attention to where ideas may be wanting to trickle in. And that's just kind of an overarching message, I would say, for this Leo season that we are heading into with this full moon beginning it. It's kind of the opening ceremony. So this is a very poetic full moon, the way that the aspects are happening. And if you like to nerd out on this stuff, it's a fun chart to look at, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. I want to keep this focused, though, because, once again, you all know that I like to use these tools not as something to tell everybody exactly what they're going to experience, or as a tool to get stressed or worried. This is here for us to just play and explore and see what we're feeling and play into the fun of connecting with energy, right? So that's my first and foremost goal whenever I'm sitting down to work with this. How can we play with this energy? How can we work with this energy so that we feel supported, so that we feel we are in conversation with divine? So let's talk through these aspects. In some ways, it's really simple. We got that sun and moon opposition, sun at 1 degree of Leo, moon at 1 degree of Aquarius, making that full moon. And the Leo-Aquarius axis has so much to do with being our authentic selves and finding the balance between really being our own sovereign person and being connected to our communities. And the Leo-Aquarius axis is probably also one of the most creative, free-spirited axes that you can work with. And they're powerful because they're thinking about the long game. Leo, Aquarius, these are fixed signs. So this is not about fleeting ideas. This is about the things that sustain us at a soul level and sustain us both as individuals and within being in the world, right? And so this is a really, really powerful axis to work with. I'm partial, obviously, having a lot of energy in Leo and loving Aquarian energy pretty deeply. Like, I respect and love Aquarian energy so much, and I think it is one of the most magical energies to work with. So we have that opposition, and it's really firing up, like I said, new perspectives, new creative ways at looking at things, being open to sit at the table of the creative flow. And I'm not just talking about the fine arts, I'm talking about anything. Anything in life is a creative endeavor. Even something as simple as filling out paperwork or organizing a house has a creative element to it, has an energetic flow to it. And so we're talking about creative thinking when it comes to all aspects of life. We so often shut ourselves off from creative thinking, from being open to new ways that that answer could come in for that problem to be solved, because we think, well, this is just how you do it. You just do it this way and you put up with it, right? So this full moon is going to right away be challenging that. If you have something where you're just kind of like, yeah, well, you know, you don't get to think creatively about that, or, well, there's nothing I can do about it. It just has to be the way that it is. Take a breath, catch yourself when that thought comes up, and stay open. Stay open to allowing creative possibilities to meet you, to answer you, to show you the way, to show you how to move through. So that's one of the first things I would say about this full moon. It has the opportunity to kind of illuminate and help you see things from a fresh perspective. So we have that opposition. We also have another opposition very close by in the neighboring signs. We have Venus at 2 degrees of Leo, and we have Jupiter, which is retrograde, almost about to go back into Aquarius at 0 degrees of Pisces. So Venus and Jupiter are forming an opposition as well. And this creates this really interesting cross if you look at a chart. It also creates these really interesting quincunxes. Venus quincunxing the moon, which just means they're five signs apart, and Jupiter quincunxing the sun. So what does all of this mean? When you have all this dialogue going on and there's this kind of this oppositional, different lens, kind of the way that traditional astrology would describe this as tension. They would describe this as aspects that form tension that force things to be addressed or that cause agitation. Now, that's not the way that I like to work with this energy. What it does do is it invites us. It really, really invites us to be open-minded to the journey of this life and to not get too stuck on one answer, one way of viewing yourself, one way of viewing a situation. This moon is really asking for open-minded curiosity and just to get relaxed. And here's one thing I will say. It is so important to get relaxed. It is so important to let yourself, let your physical body relax, let your mind relax if you want to work well with any energy at any point in time. And this moon is really inviting that. So rather than getting charged up and trying to like make this moon like the best moon with all the most creative possibilities, number one, get relaxed. Take some deep breaths, go for a long walk, meditate, free write, whatever you like to do to get into a really relaxed state, do that. And it's really a good idea to let energy move through you. So if you can do something creative and kind of meditative while you are going through this moon, this is a great way to keep your mind open to what wants to come through during this time. Now, I didn't really discuss this Venus-Jupiter opposition too much. I'm going to get my cards, though, and we're going to start shuffling. The Venus-Jupiter opposition. Venus and Jupiter are both these very benefic planets. They want the beautiful, good things in life to happen. They want to expand all of that. They are in very healing signs. Venus and Virgo, Jupiter and Neptune. These want you to be open to expansion. And I would say both of these oppositions that are working so powerfully during this full moon are about expansion. They are about leaving behind the familiar. And specifically when it comes to the familiar that is not serving you. And, you know, this is something I think we work on all the time throughout our lives. Familiar, we as humans are kind of wired to enjoy and appreciate and want the familiar, to seek it out. And the familiar can develop over the last couple of years. It can be familiar from childhood. It can be familiar from an era in your life, however that is. But this moon is asking us to expand beyond the familiar, beyond just assuming, well, you know, that's just the way it is. And what is allowed to leave? What is allowed to shift? What thoughts are you allowed to put down because they're not helping you anymore? This is a beautiful full moon to just take an assessment where maybe you feel like you have to stay in the familiar. And this can be quite subtle. It can be the familiar thing of, well, I just have to do the paperwork that way. So that's the only way. 2 cards fell, 6 of Swords and 3 of Pentacles. Yeah, what was I just saying? What is allowed to fall away? What is allowed to be left behind? The 6 of Swords is one of my favorite energies. It is an energy of bittersweetness in a way sometimes, but this is, the message here is that whatever is getting left behind is no longer serving. So even if there is some grief or some like, I'm not sure how this is going to play out, or some uncertainty, there's also a knowing that in leaving that shore behind, and leaving that thought pattern behind, and leaving that perspective on yourself, on your value, on your schedule, on what you're allowed to do, on what you're not allowed to do, on the rules that you have subconsciously put in place for what a meaningful week looks like to you, what a meaningful day looks like to you, what worthiness looks like to you, what earning your place in this life looks like to you. This is a beautiful moon to really question those places where we say, oh, I'm only allowed to live in this world, right? I'm only allowed to be a being in this world if I'm hyper conscientious and I check my email 10 times a day. Because that means that I'm thinking about my coworkers. That means that I am working hard. That means that then I'm allowed to be here. And that's just an example, right? Those little subtle places where we define our value in the world based on these familiar thought patterns. This moon is really asking us to leave that behind. And for some of us, we're also going to be thinking about things, you know, because as we expand, as we come into our truest selves, we do leave behind, you know, versions of ourselves, containers of ourselves. I know for me, that this feels so on point as I'm sitting here, because I'm going through a huge transition in my life. Just, it's like a mega transition. It's one of those phases in my life where I am shifting like so many pieces, where I'm living, what life looks like, all of those things. And it's exciting to expand into my truest form. It also means I'm leaving behind a shore that is familiar, that has held me, that has been kind of the answer to some of my past selves, but is no longer going to be the place where I can do that work. So the 6 of Swords is inviting us to be okay with what we're allowed to leave behind right now, and to just take a breath and allow ourselves to go there with it. And like I said, it's not always about practical shifts. For some of us, it will be. Like for me, I'm really contemplating that. But it's also about those thoughts of, well, if I just check things, or if I just show up all the time, or if I just overwork, or if I do a job that I don't really like, that's allowing me to be worthy in the world. It's also a moon that is going to be asking big questions around that. Now we also have this 3 of Pentacles, and it's so interesting to me because the way the cards came out, we have this woman, right? And she is leaving with her child, leaving this old shore, and she's going straight towards this meetup. She's going straight towards this communion with others that are supportive. And, you know, the 3 of Pentacles is about shared vision. It's about community. It's about not needing to create alone. And I think that's a really interesting message coming through, because this is an Aquarian full moon. And Aquarius is about kind of painting outside the lines. It is about shift and change, but it is also about our community. It's also about the way that we create together with others, not just as like a singular creator, which is a little bit more the Leonine energy, is like, I get to be this creator. I get to own my own creative space. In the Aquarian energy, how can we allow others? How can we allow there to be help to come in, vision to come in? And what I love about 3 of Pentacles is I was talking about like shifting perspectives, being open-minded to creative possibilities. And so often those creative possibilities do come to us as gifts from other beings, right? Even other animals can bring those gifts to us. Coworkers can bring those gifts to us. Friends can bring those gifts to us. The divine can bring those gifts to us via all sorts of little packaging. And we're allowed to receive that help. And so what I'm seeing here is be open to receiving help during this full moon. Do not feel like you have to hold whatever thing is bewildering you or is confusing you alone, that you just have to solve it by yourself, that you just have to like lock yourself in a creative room and make yourself figure it out. Be open to receiving guidance, be open to receiving friendship, be open to receiving new ways to work through your life. That expansion and that leaving behind the old is only helped by us being open to what wants to meet us. So like I said, I feel like it's very tempting to think about an electrical full moon like this Aquarius full moon and want to get really hyped up. But this moon is asking us to relax and trust ourselves a little bit more. This moon is asking us to relax into our expansion, relax into the fact that we are changing, and not to get scared or overwhelmed by that, but to find that peaceful place in ourselves and be open. So that means really taking the time to relax, really taking the time to calm our nervous system, really taking the time to take those deep breaths and do that meditative practice so that we can receive, so that we can receive. And that's it. It's really that simple. And this is the opening to Leo season. This is the opening to a new energetic season where the sun will be in its home sign. And no matter how you relate to Leo energy or Aquarian energy, this is a time of deep creativity and creative thinking. And that means that it's a time to be open to how things can change and how things can change to help you, and not to be unafraid of change. To understand change is something that is sustainable and can hold us for the long haul, and to be open to those answers. And I keep saying that, but so often we cut off our openness with ourselves, with our own journey, right? I'm not even asking you to be open-minded to every other person on the planet. I'm just asking for us to be open-minded to ourselves. A lot of us are surprisingly unavailable to be open to all the aspects of ourselves and who we can become. So I think this moon is really asking each of us to be open to ourselves, to be open to our souls, to be open to the divine, to be open to be surprised by ourselves and what's truly wanting to come out, the answers, the guidance, the ideas, the wisdom that wants to come out, because this is, after all, a very wise, warm, loving moon. And Aquarian energy is always going to have us thinking outside of the box. And that is one of the fun things about it. So let your freak flag fly, whatever that looks like for you. Let yourself have this day of adventure in the creative realm, however that looks. Play with colors, relax into it, and let yourself be surprised. And that's really it. That's really it. So I'm going to be doing a huge, well, not huge, a very, I think a really, really helpful activation over on my Patreon for this moon. We're going to be working with our inner rebel. And I would love for you to join me over there if you're looking for some extra support and guidance and a great community. For those of you already with me, you know what I'm talking about. I love you guys. I will see you for our next moon magic, which will be the new moon in Leo. And I hope you have a gorgeous full moon in Aquarius. I'm so looking forward to it. I cannot wait to see how I surprise myself, because I'm sure something interesting is going to pop out. Sending you my love, and I'll talk to you soon.